Just play the damn thing.
Hey everybody, I haven't done one of these videos in a while, so I thought that it was time to read and respond to some of your more recent comments. So, let's do that. This one's from A Shadow to the World. Says, you starting an industrial metal album, are you? I'd buy your album. This comment, I believe, was in response to the recent Boss HM3 video, and it's kind of strange that you mentioned that because, while I'm not a great death metal player at all, I'm not, I've written a few death metal style-ish riffs that I've used for, that I've used to demo various pieces of gear over the years. If you watch my channel for a while, you might recognize that I tend to recycle riffs every now and again. And that was one of them. But the strain, it's funny that you mentioned that. A friend of mine and longtime friend of mine that we grew up together. He and I were talking here just a couple of weeks ago. I've got all these riffs that essentially in some cases more than others have kind of turned into shells of songs. So he kind of posed the idea. I was telling him I'd like to do something with him here one of these days. He kind of posed the idea that we do something that involves you guys. And you guys contribute some some things to finish out these songs, and then we'll all actually end up doing an album together. When it's all said and done. Now, don't take this as the official announcement of that yet, because while it is something that I do want to do, there's a lot of logistical stuff that still needs to be worked out in advance, and I'm not that far along yet. So, but keep your eyes peeled here on this channel, and if you got some ideas in the meantime, send them to me, and we'll see if they make sense. Vlad Snape says, if you get around to shooting it out against the HM2 one day, it would be great if you could compare it against the HM2 Waza version. Again, you're referring to the Boss HM3 video, and that is, I can't remember if I mentioned it in that video or not, but that shootout is in fact one that I do have planned here, hopefully in the near future. There's I've got another shootout, from some old school distortion pedals, with the super distortion stuff. I think I've talked about that. I've got another one of those planned that's that I want to get done first. With the HM2, HM2 versus HM3 video, shootout video. I think in order to do it right, I would need to make sure that I have all of them. I do already own the Wazacraft version of the HM2. I don't have an original HM2, and there's actually two of those. There was a version made in Taiwan, and a version made in Japan that's a little bit more expensive. Prices on those do seem to have come down here recently. Particularly, thanks to Japanese sellers that on eBay that are willing to ship internationally. I found a lot of great deals on some old school pedals on eBay here recently. But I want to make sure that I have all of the right units there to do it with, and I'd probably want to throw in a couple of others, like the Soul Stealer from my buddy Park Kingery and his brand Park's Custom Pedals, and there's like the iMaster, which is the TC Electronic, inexpensive HM2 clone, stuff like that, just so we can hear it all in the same context. But that is one that I plan on doing here in the future. Hail Mary Recording says, that green guitar seems to be your number one. Does it have a story? I'm assuming you're referring to my trusty green Schecter. This is my Schecter CR6 that you guys, nowadays, you guys see this in most of my demo videos. And, there's not really a story behind it. I bought it brand new. And just right out of the box, it was just a fantastic guitar. Literally, I pulled it out of the box, I set it up once, I've never put another wrench on it since. It's, and I've had it for like 4 years now. It's that solid, it's that stable. I never, even tuning wise, you'll notice there's no locking tuners or any gimmicky hardware or any shit like that. No locking tuners, no locking tremolo, no locking nut or anything like that. It's just a standard stop tail, you know, string through body guitar. This guitar probably stays in tune better than any other that I own, or as well anyway. The Music Man Majesty is pretty stable as well, but I never have any tuning issues with this thing at all. It's just a rock solid guitar, And when I bought it at the time, it was $6.99, and since inflation, now it sells for $7.99. So I mean, the reason why you guys see it so often is because again, it's a great sounding, great playing guitar that really anybody can afford. Especially for some of the gear that I demoed, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to make a demo video of that stuff with a $3,000 or $4,000 guitar in most cases. I try to pay attention to the guitar forums online, and that is one thing that that a lot of people complain about when it comes to gear demos on YouTube. So I try to be conscious of who my audience is, and this is a much more accessible guitar to a lot more people out there. As far as it being my number one, when the day comes around that I get back to playing, playing in live bands, it's definitely gonna be one that'll be in the rack when I play out. If there was a number one right now, it would probably be my gold Music Man Majesty that you guys have also seen a fair amount. But the truth is, I don't really have a number one. I mean, the truth is, I love them all for for various different reasons. I love some of them because they do have a good story behind them. I love some of them because they perform in a specific application, a specific way. I love some of them because they perform in other specific applications, other specific ways. There's just I love them all for different reasons. And while I do play some of them a lot more often than others, it's not really fair for me to call one of them my number one, because if you got a number one, what the hell do you really need a number two for? Isaiah McKisser says, it pains me how anything and everything relating to Randy Rhodes goes for top dollar. White Les Paul Customs, all-tech speakers, $400 each. Marshall 1959 RR Randy Rhodes tribute amp that doesn't even have the correct tubes is about $6,000 last I checked, if you can find one. The matching cab to go with it, good luck finding one. Vintage script, MXR distortion, $350 plus. Like, come on. That seems to be a pretty, a current market trend right now. Any kind of piece of gear that has a provenance to, to certain particularly deceased, popular guitar players, Randy Rhodes, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan to some extent, some of the greats that aren't with us anymore. Some of the gear that has a provenance to, to what those guys used, is, just seems to be climbing in value. I don't get it, but it kind of seemed to have started during the pandemic when Eddie Van Halen passed away. All of the old, anything with the 5150 anything moniker on it, skyrocketed in value. I thought they would have come back down by now, but they haven't. Even the old PV 5150 amps, are worth 2 to 3 times what they used to sell for. It's insane. Same with the Randy Rhodes stuff. Same, just a lot of that stuff. It's related again to specific musicians, but that seems to be a trend right now. In regards to the Randy Rhodes stuff, some of that stuff that you mentioned, though, the 1959 RR, those have always been worth quite a bit. A friend of mine has one, and he searched for years to find it. And when he finally did find it, he paid top market, whatever the top dollar value on the market was, because he knew he wasn't, at that time, number one, that was probably going to be the best price on it he ever saw. Number two, who knows when he was going to see one again. And he did, he was fortunate enough to buy the full stack. I don't remember what he paid for it, but it took him a long time to track it down. And when he finally, he still has it. He still has it, and you're right, it is a really, really cool amp. But those are, I don't know that I would consider those, because that was a limited production run to begin with when they came out. I think they only, I don't remember how many Marshall did, 200 or something, maybe less than that. I don't remember. There's not very many of them out there anyway. Hans Kung says, I'm surprised to hear mods devalue the guitar. I put a conversion neck on my Strat. I devalued it. If it was a Strat, you know, a legit Fender Strat, and you swapped out the neck on it, I'm sorry to say you most likely, yes, you did. I am not a big fan of modifying guitars, and this is a big reason why, because I believe that it devalues, it devalues the guitar. You know, people want to buy a, Fender American Pro 2 Strat. They want the specs that came on that guitar, not the ones that I personalized it for me with. And in that instance, if I've got an American Pro 2 Strat that I'm trying to sell, I'm trying to get full market value, it's going to be a lot harder to get that dollar amount if I pulled out the pickups in favor of, my Seymour Duncan, whatever it is that I might like to put in there. People just generally want to buy buy that guitar with the stock specifications on it. Same is true with a lot of, with most other stuff, especially the more traditional stuff, the Fenders, the Gibsons, that kind of stuff. Realistically, there is, that's not a rule set in stone, because there's a lot of more the entry level stuff. Some people have been able to get more for their Squier guitars that they've modified because, they consider any pickup swap, for example, to be an upgrade over the stock pickups that may have come in it. Here in the last year, I've sold 2 Squiers myself, and I got, $450 out of both of them, because they had, they had specific pickup and hardware and tuner upgrades in them. So generally speaking, depending on the guitar, in most cases, I think it does. Certain modifications, most modifications will devalue an instrument. Realistically, it depends on who the buyer actually is. Miles Cookman says, Marshall in a box comparison video. I think you actually left this comment on the recent video of the Nu-X Plexi Crunch. That pedal, which is actually a really, really good emulation of a Marshall Plexi. I was really impressed with how this thing sounded. I mentioned in that video that I do really, really enjoy Marshall in a box style distortion pedals. So I don't know. I hadn't really considered it much, but maybe a Marshall in a box, comparison / shootout video, whatever you want to call it, might be in order. Those are always fun. Those are fun for me to do, and I own. There's God knows there's a gazillion different Marshall on a box pedals out there, but I've got half a dozen or maybe more. Yeah, I don't know. I'll that might be a fun video to pull off. We'll see what the future brings, and who knows? Maybe even for kicks, we'll shoot them out against my trusty old Marshall JCM 900. What the hell, All right, guys, that's it. Thanks.